You already know exactly what to do. You've known for months, maybe years. And still, the version of you reading this is the same version who closed the last book, watched the last lecture, made the last promise at 2 a.m. that this time would be different. That gap between knowing and being is the only real distance in your life. Close it, and everything changes. Let's start with something uncomfortable. The reason you haven't become the person you've been studying to become has almost nothing to do with information. You have enough. You have too much. Your phone is a library of every method ever taught, and you've read enough to teach the teachers. The problem lives somewhere else entirely. Somewhere closer. The problem lives in your identity. Neville Goddard said it plainly. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Read that with your whole chest. The world is waiting for you to assume more, to take on, inwardly, the self you keep describing to yourself in the future tense. You keep saying, I'm becoming. The universe only answers to, I am. So why is I am so hard? Because every cell in your current identity is voting against the change. You've spent years rehearsing a self. That self has opinions, postures, defaults, a tone of voice, a way of opening apps when bored, a way of flinching at the sound of its own name being praised. That self has muscle memory, and the new self, the one you say you want, has none. Yet, it's an infant trying to overthrow a government. Here's the part most teachers skip. Information enters the mind. Identity lives in the body, and the body only updates through repetition under pressure. You can read about confidence for a decade and remain a person who rehearses sentences before texting back. The knowing sits in one room of you, the being sits in another, and the door between them is heavier than it looks. The Kybalion calls it the principle of vibration. Everything moves. Your state right now is humming at a specific frequency, and that frequency is what the world arranges itself around. Not your goals, not your affirmations, not your vision board, your state. The quiet, unspoken assumption you hold about who you are when nobody is watching you try, which raises the question you've been avoiding. Who are you when nobody is watching you try? Be honest, because that person, the one who scrolls, who postpones, who negotiates with the alarm, who half listens to people they love, that person is the one currently manifesting your life. The polished version you present in your imagination has no executive power. None. The universe reads your wiring. This is where most spiritual content lies to you. The seductive promise is that if you just believe hard enough for 30 minutes a day, the other 23.5 hours don't matter. That isn't how consciousness works. Your mental diet is everything you think, watch, say, replay, and rehearse from the moment you open your eyes. A single guided meditation gets outvoted by 16 hours of low-grade self-criticism dressed up as realism. James Allen wrote that a person is literally what they think, their character being the complete sum of all their thoughts, not their peak thoughts, the sum. Average yourself across a week and meet the person actually building your future. So how does the bridge get built? Slowly, and through a kind of inner work nobody romanticizes. The first move is to catch yourself in the act of being the old self. Just notice. The moment you notice, a small crack opens between the witness and the wiring. That crack is the entire spiritual path compressed into a second. The second move is harder. You have to choose inside that crack to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not the picture, the feeling, the posture, the internal climate of the person who already has what you've been chasing. Confidence has a temperature, worthiness has a posture. Peace has a breathing pattern. You know them because you felt them in flashes. The work is to live there on purpose, especially when your circumstances mock the assumption. This is where almost everyone quits, because the world will test the new identity within hours, sometimes minutes. You decide you're calm, and someone cuts you off in traffic. You decide you're abundant, and a bill arrives. You decide you're loved, and someone forgets to text you back. The test is the bridge asking if you'll actually walk across it. A reasonable objection lives here, and it deserves a real answer. You might say, I've tried assuming the new identity. I held the feeling for weeks. Nothing moved. So either the teaching is empty, or I'm broken. Both options miss the truth. What usually happened is subtler. You assume the feeling on the surface, while the deeper layer of you, the one that runs on autopilot at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, kept rehearsing the old story, The work is the willingness to interrupt the background hum of your own mind again and again until the new frequency becomes the default. That's the actual size of the job. And the body remembers. Every time you persist in the assumption, while the evidence disagrees, you teach yourself a new baseline. Every time you collapse back into the old story because reality didn't bend in a week, you reinforce the original wiring. This is the hidden mechanism behind every spiritual law you've ever read about. Persistence under contradiction is the price of identity change. Without it, manifestation becomes entertainment. Consider the man who prays for courage and then avoids every situation that would require it. He's asking for the feeling of courage without the cost of it. The universe is generous, but it isn't confused. It hands you the situation. The trait is built by how you meet it, so the bridge has a shape, and now you can see it. On one side, knowing, information, theory, the mental file cabinet of everything you've consumed. On the other side, being, the lived self, the default state, the person who shows up when the script is gone. Between them runs a single discipline, sustained inward assumption under the friction of contradicting evidence. That's the bridge. The Hermetic teachers called this transmutation, turning one state of consciousness into another, on purpose, while the outer world hasn't caught up yet. They considered it the highest art a human can practice because it requires you to trust an inner reality more than an outer one. And the outer one is loud. Your inner reality has to become louder. This is why solitude matters. Why the people you spend hours with matter. Why the videos that play while you fold laundry matter. Why the inner sentences you mutter to yourself in the mirror matter more than any of it. You are being shaped constantly by what you give your attention to. Attention is the currency of identity. Spend it on the old self, and the old self compounds. Spend it on the new, and the new one slowly takes the throne. There's a quiet moment in every transformation that almost nobody talks about. It's the moment you catch yourself responding to something differently, and you don't even register the change. You used to flinch, now you didn't. You used to spiral, now you paused. You used to need to win the argument, now you let it pass. These moments arrive without ceremony. Most people miss them, but these are the only proof that ever matters. The outer life is a slow mirror. It will catch up. It always does. The first signs appear in these small, almost invisible shifts in the room of you nobody else can see. So what do you actually do tomorrow morning? You wake up, and before your hand reaches for the phone, you decide who's waking up, not what you'll do. Who? You spend 60 seconds inhabiting the feeling of the person you've been describing to yourself in the future tense, their breath, their shoulders, their inner tone. You let that be the first frequency the day tunes to. Then you go live, and you watch how many times you betray the assumption before noon. Each betrayal is information. Each return is identity being built. You do this on Tuesday. You do this on Wednesday. You do this on the day your boss is short with you, and the day your stomach hurts, and the day nothing is going right, and the day everything is. The consistency is the cathedral. Skip enough days, and you're just visiting a self that doesn't live there. Here's the thing about identity. It's a frequency you maintain. The people you admire are refusing, moment by moment, to drop the assumption of who they are, even when the world hands them 100 reasons to. That refusal is the entire game. So, the gap between knowing and being is a gap of intelligence in disguise. But the disguise is thin. The deeper truth, it's the gap between consuming a truth and inhabiting it, between reading the word ocean and being wet. You've been wet before. You know what it feels like. Brief moments when you walked into a room and felt unshakable, mornings when love moved through you without effort, conversations where the right words arrived before you searched for them. Those were glimpses of an identity you've been treating like a guest when it should be the resident. Invited to stay, stop studying the blueprint and start being the building. The teachers you've been reading are waiting for you to become them. To take the principles off the page and let them rearrange the furniture inside you until your default state is the one you used to dream about. The bridge is built by being more, on purpose, when nothing outside is asking you to. So close the tab. Close the book. Close the search for the next teacher. The one you've been waiting for has been here the entire time, hidden inside the assumption you keep refusing to hold. Hold it now. Walk across the bridge today. The other side has been waiting longer than you have.